Dixon Show is only possible with listeners.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Monday, February 6th, 2017. Thanks so much for joining us. A lot happening in the news. We have to get right down to it. But first, I do want to take a moment to thank my patrons, all of our supporters, without whom we cannot do this. This is not at all possible without you. So all of our patrons, new and old, thanks so much. All right. If you want to join the conversation, the lines will be open momentarily. 857-600. There it is. 857-600-0518 to join the conversation. A busy, eventful weekend, such is life in the Trump administration. Underneath the Trump administration, every day, I believe, at the end of the presidential term, normally it's the president. Let me say that again. At the end of basically 8 years of a presidential term, the outgoing president, always looks like he's 50 years older than when he went in. I don't know how that's going to work with Donald Trump. He already looks like a dried up orange prune. But, it's pretty consistent. I feel as though America is going to the average American who actually pays attention to half of the shit that Donald Trump does is going to look like President Obama did at the end of his 8 years, because there's not a day that goes by that we don't have a full onslaught of Donald Trumpism, of his insanity, his propaganda, his lies, his thin-skinnedness, childishness, his draconian attempts at draconian measures. It wears us down. And so this is week 3? This is week 3 of Donald Trump's administration. And I swear it feels like year 3 of Donald Trump, of the Donald Trump administration. But, we're going to be hardened. It doesn't, everybody's like, oh, well, that's his tactic. His plan is to wear you down so that you won't have any energy to fight him. Well, yeah, I guess maybe for some people, but, it doesn't matter how worn down we are. It's not like we're just going to roll over and be like, okay, it's year 2, so Donald Trump, do whatever the hell you want to do. We're just tired. No. So it just means we have to double down. He doubles down on stupid, and we have to double down on our fight, pressing back, resisting, right? I'm not a fan of the marketing of the use of resistance, #resistance, because for some people it's pure marketing, but whatever. Hey, let's use it. The resistance. It's not like we're just going to disappear because he's trying to wear us out, whether he's trying to or not. The fact of the matter is we're all going to age just as much over the next 4 years as any president does, because that's the type of thing that Donald Trump does, just day in and day out. And it's not just Trump. And again, and I know we talked about this last week, but I want to make sure we're clear on something. There's a lot of people calling for the impeachment of Trump. And I get it from a political perspective. It will be great to have that underneath a notch on your belt, right? That you got Donald Trump impeached, or he did something to warrant impeachment. But the onslaught that we're experiencing, 90% of it, if I could just take an arbitrary number, 90% of it is not Donald Trump. It's Mike Pence and Steve Bannon. So even if you impeach Donald Trump, you still have Mike Pence to deal with. It's possible you'll still have Steve Bannon to deal with, and it's also possible he'll go out with Trump. But the truth of the matter is, what we're fighting against is an onslaught of conservatism. And I know a lot of people are like, well, we want to focus on not left and right, not conservatism versus progressivism. We want to focus on the duopoly, and we want to focus on the plutocracy, and we want to focus on the top 1% and the corporatocracy. Let's focus on that and not make it about left and right. But no, what we are experiencing is the full onslaught of conservatives' wet dreams. That's what we're facing. And that's why even if we impeach Donald Trump, we're going to be facing the same uphill battle as we are, unless you have a plan to impeach Trump, Pence, and then Paul Ryan, then you really don't have a plan to defeat this agenda, because it's the full onslaught. And there's so many things we could talk about, right? And there are actually news stories that we have to cover, but I wanted to put that at the top because we are in the fight of a generation. We really are, because the conservatives are trying to redefine and restructure and reshape what America looks like, and not just from an economic perspective, which they absolutely want to do, which I absolutely want to focus on with a laser-like attention, but they are trying to undo and take us back to the 50s in terms of social issues, in terms of the environment, in terms of regulations. They want, and in terms of the economy. Well, maybe not the 50s. They want to take us back to the Gilded Age of the 20s on the economy. But this is the full onslaught, and our only hope is not to impeach Trump. Our only hope really is to get power back to somehow in a midterm election that is shaped up to be in the Republicans' favor. Somehow we're going to have to pull a comeback. Yes, you know where I'm going. We're going to have to pull a comeback like the Patriots did against the Atlanta Falcons last night. I'm not a Patriots fan. I'm not a Falcons fan. I'm just saying that's how wild of a comeback we have to pull off in order to stop Trump's agenda, because impeaching him will not stop his agenda, because it's not his agenda, right? It's not his agenda. This is the agenda of conservatives. And the only thing conservatives don't like about Donald Trump is his rhetoric, his tone, his demeanor, his presentation. They don't like that, or his affinity towards his infatuation, quite frankly, with Vladimir Putin and his dismissal of American exceptionalism. But they've shown that they can put up with both of those things in order to get their agenda across. And with that being said, the fact of the matter is we only have one hope, and that is to pull off an upset in 2018, like the Falcons were upset last night by the New England Patriots. All right, let's talk about some news, and then we'll grab some callers, and we'll get the show going. So first thing up in the news, Donald Trump, of course, being Donald Trump, has not gone a day without being a national embarrassment as well as an international embarrassment. I want to start with this story coming out of the UK. The UK Parliament has rejected Donald Trump's attendance or the opportunity, rather, for him to speak before Parliament. Now, he is coming. There was a movement to stop Donald Trump from coming to the UK on a state visit, period. That movement did not work. And this was a movement in the UK. They 100% did not. Well, I'm sure there's some actual numbers, so I don't want to say 100%, but there was quite a few people. Let me use some weasel words, right? There were quite a few people who did not want Donald Trump to come. That did not succeed. So he is going to go on a state visit, and Parliament has made it clear that they do not want Donald Trump to come and speak. Previously, President Obama spoke. I believe Nelson Mandela has spoken there, and they have a policy on paper against sexism and racism. For the sake of this conversation, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they actually are opposed to racism and sexism, at least on paper. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm quite sure there's a long history of problems with sexism and racism in the UK. However, they've decided to use this as an opportunity to speak out against Donald Trump, in which case I agree. This is a great turn of events. So I want to play a clip of the speech that was actually given today by the speaker, and then we'll discuss it afterwards.
Before the imposition of the migrant ban, I would myself have been strongly opposed to an address by President Trump in Westminster Hall. After the imposition of the migrant ban by President Trump, I am even more strongly opposed. to an address by President Trump in Westminster Hall. As far as this place is concerned, I feel very strongly that our opposition to racism and to sexism and our support for equality before the law and an independent judiciary are hugely important considerations in the House of Commons.
All right, so here, all the I like politics over there. They're loud and raucous from time to time, but here, right? So yes, Donald Trump is an international embarrassment. He's a national embarrassment, and it's a stain that we're going to have to wear on America. We're going to have to wear this stain at a minimum for 4 years. But the gentleman that you just got through listening to, John Park Burkow, is the speaker, and he has the right to determine, he presides over the debates, determining who's able to speak. He's also responsible for maintaining the rule of order right inside of Parliament, and he's able to make this distinction, or this decision rather, on his own. And so he says hell no to Donald Trump coming to speak before Parliament. Now, this is what does this actually do? Most of everything that we can do right now, with the exception of organizing, with the exception of being active, being our own activists, making phone calls, knocking on doors, organizing. With the exception of organizing, most of the things that we could do against Donald Trump right now are purely symbolic. And this is all that the UK has, the Parliament of UK has done, is a symbolic gesture to say, screw you, Donald Trump. We don't want your type here. And quite honestly, those are the things I think Donald Trump actually cares about. This is not what Steve Bannon, Mike Pence, and the people who are actually trying to implement their draconian policies, their xenophobic, homophobic, racist, sexist policies. They don't really care about the symbolic thing, but Donald Trump does. And you can tell he does because he's so easily provoked into a Twitter war over something somebody said. So in terms of Donald Trump, if you just want to irritate him or you want to make him feel insecure about himself and maybe undermine him in that way, it's a symbolic gesture. Here, great. But if you actually want to affect change, it has to be based on organizing right now. And to be sure, I'm not dismissing this, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't enjoy this, because I do, but it's not going to produce results. It's simply just a way to make yourself feel better at the end of the day that people across the world hate Donald Trump as much as the majority of Americans do. As well, they should, because he is Orange Julius. And, well, you already know. All right, let's take this first caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's me, Jared from Downingtown, PA. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Jared. What's on your mind?
I was actually joking. You said Trump wants to take us back to the Gilded Age. I said he wants to take us back to the Stone Age if Bannon gets his way with the war.
Well, yeah, you're not too far off with that one.
But what I really wanted to call was I want to do a little history lesson. I always love history, and I know Americans aren't that good with history, but I'm going to talk about foreign countries' history real quick. A brief rundown, and then I'll let you know what my main point is.
Okay.
So in the 1930s, Europe was struggling in the Great Depression, and all the countries in Central and Southern Europe were turning into fascist states. In fact, the only two outside of Western Europe and Scandinavia that weren't fascist was the Spanish Republic, which was in a civil war, and Czechoslovakia, which was later taken over by the fascist states. But as that was happening, Denmark was a democratic constitutional monarchy at the time.
Okay.
And the Nazi regime invaded at the time. And the thing was, though, that Denmark was neutral, and the king and the prime minister, who was a social democrat, who was actually very critical of the Nazi regime, when they invaded, they were in a really bad spot. They didn't know what to do. Should they collaborate with them? If they collaborated with them, that would be good, or anything like that. But in 1943, they held a democratic election.
Okay.
And I know it was democratic because the Nazis only got 2% of the vote. But after that, the Nazis started really pushing for cracking down on civil liberties, and then they just suspended the government. So the point I'm trying to say is, I would say we are in the situation of Denmark right now. We have a choice. Do we want to collaborate with the fascists who are occupying our government? Do we want to continue pretending like we have a democratic system, which we don't? Trump can get rid of it anytime he wants. He can just declare martial law. Are we going to start, are we going to have to really get into the streets or something at this point? We should be, going down in the street, have not a million women's march, 10 million march, demanding that this government resign at this point. I'm serious here.
All right.
Because I don't consider them the government. I consider them an occupying force.
All right, Jared, I hear you. I hear your main point. And let's see. Do I agree? And to what extent do I agree? I'd like to see Trump try. Let me put it like that. I would like to see Trump try to, well, actually, hang on. He's most certainly trying to invalidate the checks on the balance of power, right? He's clearly doing that. He's doing that with the media. Some of the things he's doing is textbook authoritarianism, right? And then the Republican Party 100% does not. They can't bring themselves to actually oppose his methods, even when his methods tread on him. Case in point, Marco Rubio sought clarification from the Department of Homeland Security on Trump's Muslim ban or his migrant ban, and the DHS told him that they were instructed not to answer questions for members of Congress. Right. So here Trump is clearly stepping on the toes of the balance of, not the balance of power, but check on power. And Republicans can't bring themselves to do anything against it. So while what you said at face value, what you said sounded rather hyperbolic, and my natural inclination is to just and it actually kind of sound conspiracy theorist. And my natural inclination is to reject any notion of conspiracy theory. I honestly have to. I think you may be more right in this instance than me, because he clearly has a pattern of ignoring the Constitution, treading on the Constitution. The only thing I don't know if he has enough chutzpah to do is actually try to suspend the government through martial law. I don't know if he has the backbone to do that. But should we wait to see is I think what the caller is saying. No, I don't think we should wait to see. I think we should regularly show a display of force, show people in the streets regularly protesting, but more important than protesting. And I want to say this, that every time we talk about what to do, it must include efficient organizing, and it doesn't necessarily include the need to start to reinvent the wheel, but to organize with people who are successfully organizing now. So display a show of force, get out in the streets, protest, but more importantly, organize so that we don't get caught off guard, dismissing the possibility like I just did. But we're prepared for it and show that we're not going to take it sitting down. So actually, I would rather err on the side of caution in this case, which the caller is saying, than for me to just dismiss it because it sounds like a conspiracy theory. But then based on all the evidence of what Donald Trump has shown so far, the caller may be right than I am, more right than I am. All right. Speaking of, now, I guess I'm getting ready to make the case for the last caller who said that Donald Trump will eventually suspend the government, institute martial law, and end our democracy. Case in point, is Donald Trump's relentless attack not only on the media, not only on the on the two other branches, the independence of the other branches of government, but also on truth itself. Like, he is a master of weaseling out of the need for truth, or the need or the ability to be fact checked on the truth. He's a master of that. He's a master of operating in a world that's completely dismissive of actual, tangible, verifiable, and falsifiable evidence. He's a master of that world, and his party, they have the Republican Party has been perfectly groomed to accept this type of propaganda. We'll talk about the Democrats' propensity likewise at another time. But I want to pull up a tweet by Donald Trump and to demonstrate. And of course, I think anybody who was awake saw this today. It's on your screen. Donald Trump said, "Any negative polls are fake news, just like CNN, the CNN, ABC, NBC polls in the election. Sorry, people want border security and extreme vetting." Now, what Donald Trump was referring to here, obviously, are the polls that are coming out showing the disapproval of the American people with regard to his policies in general, specifically this wall that he wants to build, specifically Obamacare. The desire to repeal and replace Obamacare is more popular now. And so this is a negative poll. So he's saying dismiss that, and specifically the ban on refugees coming into America, better known as the Muslim ban. And so he's telling America, or rather he's telling people who are gullible enough to actually believe this, to don't listen to anybody else but dear leader. Listen only to Donald Trump, and don't believe any news outlet. Don't believe any polling. Completely dismiss it because everything is fake but what I'm saying. This is classic dictator talk. This is classic authoritarianism and totalitarianism. This is classic, and he is a master of it. And actually, no, let me correct. I don't think he's a master of it. I think that the partisan nature of America, the hyper-partisanship of America, has created an environment where people are so willing to believe anything that the person that is quote unquote on their side says. So I don't even think that he is a master of it. He's just he's just willing to do it without any shame. He's willing to do it despite the facts that are looking him dead in the eye, right? And despite the reality that America really is rejecting, despite the fact that he lost by 3 million votes, instead of conceding that fact and accepting the fact that he still won, he has to challenge it by saying, oh yeah, 3 million illegal people voted. Without any evidence, without any claim. This is what he does. This is what he's a master of, not giving a damn about how he looks. And you know what? It works. It works because you cannot prove someone wrong if they completely dismiss or rewrite the idea of what is right, and dismiss and rewrite the idea of what is truth. If they can undermine the very concept of truth, then nothing matters. We're in a post-factual society. We're in a post-truth society. It doesn't, and we've slowly but surely gotten here. America in general has paved the way to Donald Trump, because we've slowly but surely gotten to this point where we will not hold, and the media is complicit in this as well. They will not hold to a notion of a fundamental truth. They will give and pander. They will give voice to and pander differing opinions, right? Because they want to appear as though they're balanced. And in their pursuit to appear that they're balanced, they have undermined the concept that there is fundamental truth. And even if it's not something that we can, because people get philosophical, say, oh, what is truth, right? Well, you know what? We're going to accept this truth. Consensus from our scientific community with regard to climate change, right? If we're going to allow people who are unqualified to make the assertions against scientists and then allow that opinion to rise to the level of the scientific community, then we have undermined the very notion that there's anything that can be proven true. And the media has done that as well. So what Donald Trump is now doing, he is benefiting off of this position, this position that America has slowly but surely been moving to, where we completely dismiss the idea of truth. And the crown jewel of it, the epitome of it is every side dismissing news that they disagree with as fake news. Trump's side does it, and Hillary Clinton's side, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Hillary Clinton, then their team coined the phrase, or at least weaponized the phrase for the election as a means of justifying how they lost. And here we are, right? Perfect phrase, fake news. Really simple, easy to use. Everybody repeats it. And now we're at the point where the president of the United States is saying that everything that you hear that is negative is fake news. There's no way to prove, right? There's no way to prove to an audience who already has a bias, an implicit bias against any news that is contrary to what they want to happen, right? You can't prove to that type of person that they're wrong. You can't prove to a person who will so easily dismiss the notion of facts. You can't prove them wrong. You can't fact check them. You can't debate them. All we can do is beat them. That's it. And when we beat them, we have to utterly, what did he say about the Johnson Amendment? We have to utterly destroy it. We have to utterly destroy the electoral capacity of people like this, both the individual like Trump, as well as the sycophants who are willing to believe anything so long as it confirms their biases. I keep giving this example, but I'm going to give it one more time. Immediately after election, the election was on Tuesday. On Thursday, after the election, I went to Worcester, Massachusetts, and I debated. You call it a debate. I was at a Tea Party debate, and in the midst of the debate, the most amazing thing happened. I was able to convince these, all white and angry. Not all of them angry, but enough of them were angry, and some of them were angry enough for me to be like, okay, I should have brought something. I felt a little bit unsafe. This is how angry and how white that crowd was. And in that angry white crowd who just won an election, I don't know what the hell they were mad about, but in that angry white crowd, I was able to get them to admit that they were at least willing to side with racism for the sake of getting Donald Trump elected. They conceded that point. What they would not concede was that there was no such thing in any statistical significant way as voter fraud. They would not believe that no matter how much information I gave them. The fact that between 2000 and 2014, I think over 1 billion ballots were counted, and they had less than 30 instances of voter fraud. And they dismissed that so vehemently, so viscerally. They were angry that I would even suggest to them that voter fraud is rarer than the Ebola virus, even though it is. And they all brought these anecdotes that are not even anecdotes. They just made shit up. And they were really fervent and serious about these churches loading up hundreds and thousands of people and taking them precinct by precinct by precinct to vote. And they held on to that, and they would not. If they were going to lynch me over anything, it wasn't going to be about telling them that they sided with racists. It was going to be over the fact that I told them that voter fraud was not real or was not significant enough to change any election. We're living in a post-factual society. I don't know. What's the best way to say it? You know what I'm trying to say. We're living in a society that completely rejects any notion that there is a verifiable fact if that fact disagrees with their bias. And Donald Trump is the politician that America has been waiting for, because slowly but surely in this week, spineless milquetoast attempt to make it look like we're unbiased, the media has given voice to people who have no place asserting their opinion against researched facts. See, I'm even hesitant to say facts because we're so far past that point where there's no such thing as fact anymore. And we've been building this way. We've been going this way slowly but surely for a long time. And now we've got the politician who has no shame whatsoever. He'll sit on Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly will kind of beat around the bush and kind of softly try to tell him you're lying. And Donald Trump has no shame. No shame. There's no such thing as a lie to Donald Trump because he doesn't lie, because what he says is truth. That is dangerous. And a person like that being in the most powerful position in the world is even more dangerous. But this is where we are, and this is where we've slowly but surely gotten to. All right, let's take this next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and question?
It's Umar from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's in the house. What's up, man?
Well, okay, you know, I seem to be, I'm a geek by heart. So my YouTube channel is usually filled with geek stuff, but I've been listening to all you guys now.
Okay.
The Same Progressive, you, Tim Black, and I'm sorry, I'm like, you know, you guys said this like a year ago, and I'm just stunned at a little bit at my whole reaction is, why are you surprised? This is how these people were from the beginning. America has just gotten into facts. Okay, let's go back to the Scottsboro boys. Let's go back to the Central Park Jogger. Let's go back to how Emmett Till got killed. Facts obfuscated. Rosewood. I think a black man might have touched a white woman. Let's kill the entire town. What? I'm sorry. It's like, I'm not shocked by this, but on the flip side, remember how I said we got to take out victories? The Super Bowl commercials then was a victory for us. Did you see how many companies kissed Progressive's butt? I mean, not just kissed our butts. They put their head so far up our butts, it was amazing. And if you saw Twitter the next morning, you could see I'm just going to group them all as Trump supporters. I don't care if they're YouTube racists. From now on, I'm sorry, like I said, I understand the argument about shade of gray. We're not in that kind of world anymore. It's them against us. But if you could see the reaction, they had a reaction to a Budweiser commercial that really wasn't about Arabs or anything, but only showing the ridiculousness of the so-called immigration ban.
Yeah.
But we got to take those kind of victories. I don't believe what we can do is only symbolic. It's like when I mentioned the lobbyists before, I said, okay, what I meant to get to was this. Those lobbyists are connected to companies. Those companies are connected to products. While we can't attack Donald Trump, get him out the office until the voting time come or until midterms time, we can attack the companies that support him. I agree that the Uber reaction was a little extreme. No one really looked at exactly what happened. But at the same time, I'm saying, look at our power. We went as progressives and people who were trying to be on our side of this thing, went after them so hard they threw $3 million at the court. I don't think Uber really did anything bad, but just the notion of impropriety. And like I said, I'm sorry Uber had to be victim to the angrier side of the progressive movement.
I'm not, but go ahead.
Tough.
Yeah.
This is what we got to do.
Yep.
This is how the Tea Party did it.
Yep.
There can't be no more discussions. I just watched this YouTuber, Christiosity, talking about, oh my God, I can't believe the racist YouTuber did something racist. And I'm sitting here saying, but you keep going on his show. You keep debating with him. You keep treating him and MRAs and Gamergators and Trump, all these idiots, as if we got a point. You see, we have to listen to their side. Not when their side is rape is okay. Not when their side is there is no racism. Why do black people complain about rape? When I have a bunch of white people who are in Germany and Switzerland and England telling American blacks, well, you know, you have no reason to protest. Well, how the hell would you know? You know, even the progressives who God help me, supported Hillary. I don't want to get on that, but at the same time, a lot of them are in other countries and coming out of us like, how dare you not say she's progressive? Like, but you're not in this country. Who are you? But now it's time. They put that woman Warren that we said we'd vote for. Didn't she just say didn't she help put Ben Carson in there because someone worse might come along? Wait a minute. Is that how the Republicans treated all of Obama's nominees? Why aren't you doing the same?
Right.
Okay, I didn't expect them to. Why are we still looking towards the Democratic Party? I'm sorry. We are in a time where a new party, and I say progressive party, is ripe for the pickings. Because just like Trump stirred up the races and gathered them all together so we know where to burn the building down, Glorious Bastard style,
Yep.
we are now gathering the progressives, the neoliberals. But if we do not start taking hard lines and taking out victories we can, and I couldn't believe he was on Twitter to say, yes, SJW forever, look at our Super Bowl commercials. There were black people in it. Do you love us, Trump supporters? And that's how we got to start acting. As a unit, I don't care about disagreements anymore. As a unit, we got to stop treating this guy like he's funny. This is not going to be funny. I'm telling you, when the military hits DAPL or Chicago, it's going to really stop being funny.
Yep.
Because we know where this is going. This is the first time you could use the Hitler comparison and not be hyperbole, because that's exactly how it happened with Hitler. They put him in a little office to appease his little party. Because not that his party had the numbers, because they were loud. See, that's what's happening. These people are loud. So we think loud equals numbers. It doesn't. And the Super Bowl commercials is proof. Because our numbers, all those protests, all those calling to the, they're still calling the Congress about Betsy DeVos.
Yep.
That's something we should be proud of. And we reached so far that we have major companies kissing our butts for $5 million per 30-second spot. Take the victory, for God's sake.
All right. Thanks for the call, Umar. 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. I agree with it. Maybe everything you said except for the first couple minutes. Here's the thing I'm going to push back on. Number one, even though we know this is how they operate, we can never stop identifying that this is what they're doing. Right. And I completely dismiss that idea that if we know they're liars, why do we highlight the lies? No, every time they lie, every time they use propaganda, this is another way of fighting back, is to identify it and to remind not only somebody's listening. And I think this is the thing that people dismiss. People dismiss and think that the numbers are baked, that if they support Trump, they just support Trump. But that's not really true. If you look at the polling data, there are fewer people who are supporting Trump right now than when they voted for them. And the fact of the matter is that we have to not only identify the monsters, but we also have to get those that we can get, right? So if we demonstrate that they are constantly being subjected rather to propaganda, it may not shave off a full percentage point, but sometimes 1 percentage point is all you need. So we have to identify it every time they do it. That's my job. You don't have to do it, but that's my job. Two, everything that we do, and make sure that everyone's clear. Organize. I don't care what you organize for. If you're organizing for a protest, organize. If you're organizing to boycott, organize. If you're organizing to push back against Uber, organize. That's the name of the game. That's what we've been saying. That's what we're going to keep saying. And if you feel like we're just saying the same thing over and over again, well, it's because he's lying over and over again. It's because they're doing things that are detrimental over and over again. But also we need a constant reminder, even to just progressives, that we have to organize. Symbolic gestures are great. Not everything is going to be symbolic. The things that won't be symbolic are the things that we organize. The Uber victory, that's because we organize. It's because people organize together and they got an actual victory. The commercials, we're actually going to talk about some commercials, they recognize the movement. So organize. I can't say it. I don't know if I can say that any other way, but organize. I could say get shit done. That's my old company's motto: get shit done and don't F it up. But organize. All right. Organize. Just want to make sure everybody's clear. You know, and again, if I can help you with your organizing, I don't care what organization you go be a part of. I really am not a fan of a whole, but you know, we have 1 million people. We don't need 1 million organizations, right? But there are organizations out there that are trying to galvanize the troops and get shit done. Join those organizations. They might end up being bad, but you'll find out and you'll learn some things and you'll know what not to do and you'll know what to look for or what not to find in the next group. But go join the organizations. Impact, Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution, Democratic Socialists of America. Go join them. Give them your dollars. Organize. In the meantime, we got to cover the news. All right. Speaking of covering the news, speaking of all the different things that we are dealing with and that we're organizing against, there is the... Actually, no. I don't want to start there. I want to go here. Let's go here. Let's talk about this divide. This unbelievable propensity to flip sides at the drop of a dime. Highlighted best by President Trump's interview with Bill O'Reilly just before the Super Bowl yesterday. I've got to cover this. I want you to take a quick listen in to what he said on Bill O'Reilly with regard to Russia, and then we'll unpack all of the problems with what he said, as well as all the problems with how people are reacting on the left and the right.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him.
Do you?
But
Why?
Well, I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. And if Russia helps us in the fight against ISIS, which is a major fight, and Islamic terrorism all over the world,
right?
Major fight, that's a good thing. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very
He's a
possible
killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent? Do you think our country's so innocent?
I don't know of any government leaders that are killers in America.
Well, take a look at what we've done, too. We've made a lot of mistakes. I've been against the war in Iraq from the beginning.
Yeah, mistakes are different
We made
than...
a lot of mistakes, okay, but a lot of people were killed. So a lot of killers around, believe me.
Let's talk about Mexico.
All right. That's Trump. All right, so let's dissect it based on what he said. There is, I want to put this at the top, not because I have to, but because it should be said. There's clearly, there is a difference between a political leader being implicated in the assassinations and the attempted assassinations of his immediate political rivals and a country going to war on false information. Now, is one better than the other? I'm going to let you decide that. But there is a false equivalence that Donald Trump drew here that has to be pointed out. And I've pointed it out. Let me go to the next part. The next part is this. Liberals, do not use this as an occasion for you to become super patriotic and whitewash America's very problematic past. And I'm going to say it like this. Donald Trump is wrong on 99 out of 100 things. This is one of those rare things that he is not wrong on. America is violent. We are murderers. We have killed millions, tens of millions of people. Now, this is not what he was saying. He was not saying this to say, oh, let's reflect on America. Let's look at all the shit that we've done bad. Let's be clear. He's not saying that. He's using this as a way to weasel out of him saying he respects Vladimir Putin. Nothing more, nothing less. He doesn't want America to improve. He doesn't want to pull back on the American empire abroad. He's not going to reduce the military industrial complex. He's going to ramp it up. Let's be clear. However, attack him on the thing that he said that is absolutely wrong. Attack him on the fact that he's being disingenuous, drawing a false equivalence. But don't turn around and say, oh, America is good, America's great, and America's always been great, because that's bullshit 101. All right. And I say this because the very first reaction that I saw from people all over the internet, people with large platforms, people with small, your major outlets, it was this American exceptionalism bull. And the fact that Trump, I think it was Jer Heat, I forgot what outlet he was from, but he was like, Donald Trump has no need for American exceptionalism. And that's actually a redeeming value. If there is one in Donald Trump, it would be that the rejection of the idea that America is by definition exceptional and good and just. America is only as good and just as the administration that's in power right then. And the things that we fight for to make us better. But you cannot whitewash. And here's the other thing. Bill O'Reilly was trying to say, yeah, but you haven't seen political assassinations domestically. Actually, it was Keith Olbermann who said that. And the fact of the matter is, actually, we have. We have not seen them recently inside domestic politics. But you do realize the 60s was all about killing progressive leaders. I mean, one after another, just gunned down, assassinated, straight out killed, and all to the point where all we were left with were either conservatives or what was going to emerge to be neoliberals. But progressivism was assassinated in the 60s. So we have a very rich history in political assassinations, or the assassinations of political rivals. Now, whether or not it was the individual, person in office in power like Vladimir Putin doing it or issuing it, that's I don't know. I'm not even going to go there, right? But the fact of the matter is, America is drenched in the blood of progressive political leaders. We're drenched in the blood of Native Americans, African Americans. We're drenched in the blood of just of all the nations that we have exploited internationally. America is a bloodthirsty empire. And to see to see neoliberals turn and use this as an occasion to become the patriotic party of America is disturbing. Enough of them. Here's the other side. What is equally as disturbing is to see the extent to which Republicans are not going to call Donald Trump out on the same thing that they would have destroyed a Democrat over. I mean, this one story has enough hypocrisy to hit every single body. Everybody gets hit in the story, because neoliberals and liberals and Democrats, they're all about, oh, God bless America. America is great. Huh? And then now Republicans are like, well, we're just not even going to comment on it. They're not going to comment on it because they can't bring themselves to actually call Donald Trump on the carpet. And so this moral inconsistency, this hypocrisy is really what it is shows you why all the more we have to defeat them. We have to get them away from power. We can't just talk about it. They must be opposed at every stop, and they have to go because they have no moral fortitude. They have no moral consistency, and they're completely bereft of any idea of being anything but disingenuous. That's all this is what they are. And for consideration, consider this. Mike Pence, the vice president, in response to President Obama's first term, where Republicans were like, oh, he's doing an apology tour. He doesn't believe in American exceptionalism. And he actually said this, quote, I believe in this is Obama. I believe in American exceptionalism, just as I suspect that the Brits believe in British exceptionalism and the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism. All right, so here's what the response was from Mitt Romney. He said, we have a president right now who thinks America's just another nation. America's an exceptional nation. All right, so Mitt Romney, what are you going to say to Donald Trump? Sarah Palin, I don't give a damn about what Sarah Palin says. Newt Gingrich, exceptionalism for Americans is the belief that the United States is in some way more open, more vigorous, more optimistic than other nations. Our best leaders have reminded us that we have a moral obligation to the cause of freedom, and the cause of freedom is the cause of all mankind. All right, Newt, where's your statement against Donald Trump, who made this false equivalence between an individual leader who's implicated in the assassination of many of his political rivals and America's bloodthirsty war past? Present. I'm sorry, past. This is present. Where's your statement? Rick Perry, soon to be the Secretary of the Department of Energy, said those in the White House today they don't believe in American exceptionalism. They rather emulate the failed policies of Europe. Mike Pence, the vice president, said, finally, to renew American exceptionalism, we must recognize that our present crisis is not merely economic, but moral in nature. At the root of these times should be the realization that people in positions of authority from Washington to Wall Street have walked away from the timeless truth of honesty, integrity, and an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Blah, blah, blah. Where's your statement against your sitting president? Or maybe, just maybe, and I don't know that I'm ready for this, but maybe Donald Trump is going to force Republicans to dismiss this idea of American exceptionalism. I mean, stranger things have happened. The Patriots came back from a 25-point deficit in one quarter. Stranger things have happened. Maybe Donald Trump, being as insane and just unpredictable as he is going to force conservatives to give up this idea that America is by default good. The problem with that is we got Democrats on the other side who said, oh, this is an opportunity for us to get leverage over them in this issue. And so if they abandon American exceptionalism, Democrats are willing to pick it up. And somewhere in the middle are the reasonable people who say, no, America is not one-to-one Vladimir Putin. It's apples to oranges. But America has such a bloody past and such a complete dismissal of freedom, except for freedom that benefits their chosen people, a complete dismissal of fairness, except for fairness as defined by people in power, a complete dismissal of integrity, except for what they determine to be integrity, and dismiss anyone else's actions and fight as anything but having integrity. America is anything but exceptional. And I love America because it's my only home. But we have to be sober about who we are and what we've been. And this idea that Democrats are going to now become the champions of American exceptionalism and Republicans are going to now accept the fact that America is not that exceptional. Stranger things have happened. All right, caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's me, it's Bryce. How's everything? So I wanted to make a point.
Wait. You asked me how everything was and didn't give me a chance to say everything's good, man. How's it going for you, Bryce?
Sorry. Okay.
No problem. Go ahead, man. Get down to business. That's all right.
So here's my little issue. Number one, especially for us as black people. So apparently Trump is supposed to do this HBCU thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of black people are talking about it and, on their platforms talking about, Trump is doing this for HBCUs and, Obama didn't do this for it, which I understand on levels, don't get me wrong. There's some things could have done better on that part. But the fact that that people here would think that Trump cares about black people is just asinine and dumb and stupid. Just because he's going to do some HBCU thing, that don't mean a damn thing, because he wants to take us back to pre-1964. Let's just be honest. And that whole administration is, especially the hard right. And it's like, just because he's going to do some college thing, it goes back to the whole thing of Obama didn't do all this for black people. Obama didn't change 300 plus years of racism for black people. And don't get me wrong, there's things he could have done better, and I understand that. I got my critiques like you do. I understand it, not letting nobody off the hook. But I'm just saying, the fact is that Trump don't give a shit about black people, Islam, people as Muslim, etc., etc. And the fact that we're being so gullible as a people and using our platform to say, well, Trump doing this and Obama didn't do that. What does that got to do with what's going on now? What does it got to do with the fact that he don't give a shit. He's talking about sending the feds to Chicago and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So that to me, it's just asinine.
So,
It's getting to a point where we just picking different stones. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, great call. Thanks for the question and the topic. So I think there is a genuine disillusionment amongst the black community about the failings of Barack Obama to do anything for the black community, right? And I think that might be an overstatement, but I think it's generally true. President Obama did not do anything for the black community that was not coupled with doing something for everybody, right? He didn't do anything that was racially specific, even if it was racially transcendent, as I picked up from a Bill Moyers interview a few years ago. And so there's quite a few people who dismiss Obama, and they also dismiss the establishment politics, no matter what side, Republican, Democrat. There's a complete dismissal of that. And so some black people actually look at Donald Trump as a game changer because he's not a part of the system, even though he really is. Now, that's me being gracious. On the flip side, you have opportunistic people who know that there's a wedge issue that can be placed, and there's clicks to be made off of the black Trump support or the black anti-Obama support. And so they're going to run that to the ground as much as they can. Anything Trump does that's remotely good, they know they can capitalize off of. See, Trump does this and Obama didn't do that, because there's still clicks to be had out of anti-Obama rhetoric, just like there's clicks to be had off of the anti-Hillary rhetoric. Like, let's be real. Part of and it's to me it shows. No. Let me just I started it. To me, it shows a lack of talent. To me, it shows me that you're a one-trick pony. You're a one-trick pony if you're still talking about Hillary's emails. I'm sorry. F Hillary's emails. I don't give a damn about her emails anymore. Right? Just done. You're a one-trick pony if you're still talking about Barack Obama. Barack Obama is on vacation. He ain't thinking about you. And he ain't thinking about us. He's out there smoking some weed somewhere, doing what the hell he wants to do. But some people are just a one-trick pony, and they know they can get clicks off of that. And so they ride it as long as they can. But, you know, there are some genuine people out there, usually not the ones who have platforms, because most of us have an occasion to be disingenuous as often as we can. But there are people out there who just really are disillusioned with the American system as a whole, and then they feel like Donald Trump represents change to that system. In actuality, he doesn't. And I think that's one of the things that we need to highlight every single day. If there's a call to action inside of everything that we talk about, is to highlight the extent to which Donald Trump is not a change agent. He has not changed anything. He has doubled down on the very worst things about our economy, very worst things about our American politics. The only thing he has done differently is that he decided early on to be an open bigot, an open asshole, an open dick. Like he's just flagrant with it. But he has doubled down with Goldman Sachs. He's doubled down with the top 1%. He's doubled down on everything. We said this during the primaries, that Donald Trump was going to be a traditional Republican because he's bereft of any ability to write an executive order on his own. So he's going to take the mandates of the people who's willing to sit down and do the work, like Paul Ryan, like Steve Bannon, like Reince Priebus. So we must highlight, as part of our resistance, highlight on a regular basis every time Donald Trump does something that does not change America the way people, honestly, I don't know why they thought it. Don't ask me why they thought this. I don't know. But they just hope so deeply that somebody will come in and shake America up. And Donald Trump has come in and shaken America up just in terms of political correctness or the lack thereof. But in terms of everything that's broken, he's doubled down on it. And the last thing, to the HBCU thing, and people, people sending me links all day. Oh, Donald Trump is going to do X, Y, and Z for HBCUs. You know what? It really doesn't matter what you do for HBCUs when you're not changing the fundamental problems for which most African Americans can't even get to an HBCU. Let's start there. College in general is a middle class luxury and privilege. Most African Americans living in a certain level of poverty for which Donald Trump has no remedy, and we'll get to his remedy. but we're really not talking about helping out the majority of African Americans. We're talking about helping out the middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class Americans who actually afford the opportunity to go to college. He's undermining that as well with some of his economic policies. And I can go on and on and on about how his economic policies are directly detrimental, not only to white people, but the black community. So he's going to further exacerbate the problem. But they're excited because he's going to give a handout. What good is a handout? Here it is. What good is a handout that's only going to benefit what percentage? Less than a majority, barely a plurality. Barely can get a plurality of African Americans who would benefit from whatever grants he's going to give to HBCUs. Doesn't mean we don't want him to give it. Fine. No, fine. Shit. Give them the money. But is he a black savior because he's given us some pennies? No. All right, we got to keep rocking. I didn't realize we were already out of time. So let's cover a few more stories. I will take one last call. One story that I don't know. All of a sudden, I don't know if I want to do this story because time is pressing. Let's take the caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and our question?
Hello?
Yep, you're live.
Hi, Ben. It's Vita.
Vita, what's up? What's on your mind?
My question is to you: when you talk about economics and towards education, the college thing for HBCs, or across the board when it comes to African Americans in society having access, and I think about in terms of one thing comes to me when we look at immigration. When you go across the board, you start drilling down into the data based on illegal immigration. Our immigration period where it's H-1 visas for jobs, and also the visas that they also give to entrepreneurs to business from foreign countries to come into America, and how that affects the opportunity for African Americans to move up in society or even compete. Because when you look at far as the dreamers, as far as education, if a legal immigrant that is not a U.S. citizen can have access to a college grants and so forth, that is a negative for African Americans. If we put money into our taxpayer dollars, like in California, where they have a current bill that's going to make that they want to make California a state sanctuary for illegal immigrants, and also take our taxpayer dollars and use it for a legal fund to defend them. And what can, as a citizen, as a U.S. citizen, and have a daughter in college that doesn't get an access, and then when she goes to look for part-time work where she's at the college, they want to put her on a 1099 where she's not a full employee, where no taxes are taken out. And that's the new norm. Chicago has a temporary agency where they have taken away where African Americans get to apply for temporary jobs, and there's a discrimination suit that they have done where they where the black temporary agency, where the people that applied for this temporary agency discriminate against them by hiring only Hispanics for these jobs. So there's a lawsuit. There's plenty of things going around, but nobody talks about the citizen. So I just want to put that out there to you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call. Okay. Last but not least, what I want to talk about, and I actually might have just bitten off more than I have time to chew, but I want to talk about something real quick that's brewing on the left. I want to talk about this question that has been brewing on the left for a little while since Richard Spencer was punched. There's an interesting question that I think is worthwhile discussing. It's whether or not there's a question of whether or not we should actively engage in punching Nazis. And it's actually a deeper question than that, because there's so much for us to take care of and work on and fight for and oppose to a certain extent where I really don't care if you punch a Nazi or not. That's your business. But there seems to be a question brewing that really boils down to a question of pacifism versus not being a pacifist. And the reason I want to talk about it is because it's far too much. I have to talk about it on air. There's just far too much to deal with this unless I wrote a series of articles. So the question that remains is really surrounding the Antifa movement and the Black Bloc. And before I even start talking about the Black Bloc and the Antifa movement, let's just put something out here. Let's first define. And I don't know that you can really define them, but maybe I can describe them for most people. Whenever you see a left-leaning protest, there's always a group embedded in that protest that you could describe as insurrectionists, you can describe as anarchists, you could describe them as rioters, you could describe them in a lot of ways depending on what event that you actually catch them at. And so there's always been a long-standing opposition from the left against these groups, because these groups do undermine peaceful protests. They do. Let's just be real, right? The case in point is Washington, D.C., Trump's inauguration. There was a socialist rally where thousands of people gathered, a beautiful protest, peaceful and organizing, galvanizing moment, right? What we need people organized. We need people galvanized and put into action, moved into action. And 2 blocks away in D.C. Was the Black Bloc, where they did their thing and essentially devolved into a full-out riot with fires and property damage and Starbucks. Everybody was freaking out because Starbucks glass was broken and a limousine was burned down, and a lot of people were arrested, including journalists. And the only takeaway from DC, not a single mention about the socialist rally. All the attention was on the Black Bloc. And to this extent, they do undermine leftist movements. And to be sure, let's be sure about something. They don't agree with, some of them do. It's a very diverse group. They're not a monolith. They have a lot of different ideologies represented. The one thing that I think you could take away is the willingness to use violence, as a political tool. And it completely undermines the leftist movements, because whenever you see a leftist movement, there's going to be this group here. Now, what I started to say about the Black Bloc is this. They don't give a damn about what we think about them. They don't give a damn about our debate, our ongoing debate of whether or not we should use violence or not. They are going to do whatever the hell they want to do. So be it. Let them do that. The question that remains is whether or not or how leftists should look at this movement, and not even the movement, about violence. And I really did bite off more than I have time to chew, but we're gonna chew on it, and because I think it's an important conversation that has to be had and probably debated about, or whatever the case may be. Because the reason it's even up for debate is because most people won't admit it, or maybe you will, but a lot of people won't. As much as we have opposed the methods of the Black Bloc in past times, all of a sudden the Black Bloc was really, really I started to like them once they knocked the shit out of Richard Spencer. I'm just going to be honest with you. I started to like them a whole lot more. And a lot of people did. And then we even started going into conversations about whether or not it's actually okay. Should we should we punch Nazis? And you have this ongoing debate amongst leftists. Noam Chomsky weighed in by virtue of a question that someone emailed him. And they asked him, is it okay for us to punch Nazis? And his response was, ethically, no. Strategically, it undermines your efforts. And he says, but practically, when you go into the realm of violence, the person that is the most brutal wins. And that's not us, saying that we're not the most brutal. And all that sounds pretty reasonable and pretty rational. But the question that I really, who was it? Carl Baer. He actually said something really brilliant. Carl Baer from the Baltimore, actually he's not with the Baltimore Post anymore. I forgot where he is now. But he's basically saying we're really talking about pacifism versus not being pacifist. And the reason this is even a conversation is because if people really believe that Donald Trump is a fascist and is going to carry out things in a Hitler-esque way, then to what extent are we willing to oppose him? And the immediate response has been, the knee-jerk response by some has been, see a Nazi, punch a Nazi. I don't know. Here's where I stand, and this is all I can say, and this is all anyone can say, because it becomes an individual issue. It becomes an individual, what do you believe at the end of the day? And it has always been my position on this show, as well as in my life, is that I have never been a peace at any cost. I am not a pacifist. I don't run to violence, nor do I think that we're at a place right now today where we should honestly be considering using violence as a means for our political ends. Clausewitz said, war is the continuation of politics by another means. So violence is a political tool. And for people to dismiss violence as a political tool is ahistorical. It has always been a political tool. I just don't think it's a political tool that we have to use now. This is not, we are not at a place where we really have to consider, are we going to take up arms and fight violently? You know, this whole thing about punching the Nazi, whatever. I'm not going to judge. And if you punch him, I'm going to watch the video. Punch, I watch. I'm going to laugh. I'll share it. But is it something that we have to use as a strategy right now? I don't think that we're there. And this is my, like I said, I preface this by saying this is what I believe. You believe what you want to believe. We're not there. However, embedded in this conversation is this pacifism that I disagree with so vehemently, because and I disagree with Noam Chomsky on this, even though I agree with him probably on 99% of I disagree with them here, because we have the benefit here in America. We have the benefit of living and benefiting from America's violence. And now we get to exist in this American political system that appears peaceful, that we can have a peaceful transition of power, and that we haven't had a civil war since the first Civil War, that we have a way for people to express their dissent and go to the streets and all these types of things. We have this system that's set up, and we are the beneficiaries of this system. Everybody, even if we agree with it, we are the beneficiaries of it, where we don't have to literally take up arms to change America. We don't. But to completely dismiss the necessity and the possibility of violence as a political tool is completely ahistorical. We are just living in a generation where we don't have to live in that reality in America. Go across seas, and it's a totally different story. So this idea that we at all costs should not be willing to engage in violence is so ahistorical. And I keep saying that because there's nothing that's been established in this world politically. There's not a government that's been established that has not been established on the back of violence. Through the means of violence. There's no peace. There's no peace that we've had that has not been on that has not been brought by some violence. This world order that we have right now is the result of World War II. The post-World War II is brought the peace that we've had. And we can argue about the margins. We can argue about the proxy wars. We can argue about all the ongoing wars. We can argue about the Middle Eastern, North African nations. We can argue about all that. But still, at the end of the day, we have a structure that is predominantly peaceful for us in America as a result of the fighting that we engaged in World War II. And this is why I say it this way. It is ahistorical for us to dismiss violence as a means of political gains, of a political end. But we're not anywhere remotely near that right now. We can organize. We need to organize. We could still change America at the ballot box. We can still change America by organizing. We can still change America by running for office. We can still change America in 100 different ways that doesn't require violence. But at the end of the day, at the logical extreme of it, we live in a violent reality. And to say, like Noam Chomsky said, that we are not, the person that's the most brutal will win, and we are not that people. I can't dismiss my beliefs. I can't dismiss my willingness to fight for what I believe in, even beyond peaceful protest. I can't. I mean, some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth dying for. But we're not there right now. Organize. Protest. Vote. Call your senators. Boots on the ground. Speak out. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to people who didn't vote. Talk more than just on social media. There are 100,000 ways that we can fight back that doesn't include violence right now. But like I said when I started all this, we are the beneficiaries of America's past violence. And there's nothing that's been built. There's not a single government that's been built in this world that has not been built on the back of violence. And you can believe what you want to believe. I'm not trying to change what you believe. But for me, I'm not peace at any cost. I really believe that sometimes peace is going to cost. And somebody, hopefully we won't ever have it. Hopefully everything works out fine. I think it will. We're not there. We're not there where we actually have to pick up arms, right? We're nowhere near that point. And we can help avoid escalating to that point by avoiding unnecessary violence. You know, the one thing that one thing that can go wrong is you go out and punch a Nazi because that's all the rave, and the Nazi pulls a gun and kills you. And then that escalates. We're not there. But to completely dismiss the necessity for violence or the use of violence to build a society, I still would like for anyone who is a complete pacifist to show me in world history where there has been a society built that has been able to exist completely without violence. Sometimes you got to fight. Sometimes you got to fight, and some people have to be willing to fight. Hopefully our children don't have to, because we have the benefit of not having to right now. But to completely dismiss the reality that someday someone is going to have to use violence is such a defeatist mentality. It betrays what you believe in. It tells me that you don't really believe in what you're talking about enough to fight for it and to die for it. So let's just all be grateful that right now we don't even really have to even have this conversation. Right now, all we have to do is go out and organize, and everything else should take care of itself.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
It's Ben Dixon!
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.